Opium, Please by Gary Ives. Read by Gary Ives. How strange that a lone skate, slowly swimming near the surface of the Bay of Bengal, on the moonlit night of August 15th, 1945, would alter human lives. As Japanese submarine I-207 began to surface that night to charge her batteries and to receive that day's coded military broadcasts, the radio men began hastily turning the crank that raised the boat's antenna. The antenna hit the skate's belly hard and snapped off at its base. There was no spare, and before an emergency antenna could be rigged, the boat's radar detected a closing surface contact, made an emergency dive, and prepared to attack. Captain Ishihara would not learn that Japan had announced surrender and that the war was over. The crew of the American destroyer Avant were jubilant with the news of the Japanese surrender. 17-year-old Billy Sorensen had been smoking a cigarette on the fantail just before assuming the mid-watch as night baker's mess cook. The explosion from the Japanese sub's first torpedo hurled him far into the air. The second torpedo hit amidships just before Sorensen, unarmed, hit the water. The Avant broke into two pieces that sunk immediately. Soon he found himself clinging to one of the two life rafts automatically released. The submarine surfaced and had just begun a searchlight scan of the surface, but quit the scan, doused the light, and dived when the drone of an aircraft engine was heard. Billy called over the water for other survivors, but there were none. He was able to haul himself aboard the raft and paddled to the two other rafts which had come to the surface. These he tied to his raft. In the dark there was nothing to do but wait for daylight. The string of three rafts would be 3 times more visible in the daylight, and if he were lucky, the Navy would be looking for survivors. He'd also be 3 times more visible to any other vessels, a calculated risk. Everyone else might think the war was over, but obviously it was not. Maybe tomorrow it'd be over. At first light, he was able to inventory the raft's emergency supplies. Each raft held 8 gallons of drinking water, emergency rations of 2 pounds of hardtack, and 4 blocks of chocolate, oars and oarlocks, line, canvas, a compass, flashlight, fishing line, hooks, a knife, and a signaling mirror, and a very pistol with 3 flares. None of the flashlights worked. A steady breeze nudged the rafts easterly toward the Burmese coast. Sorensen, a fair-skinned blonde, rigged a canopy with a piece of canvas and 3 oars and was trolling 2 fishing lines when he sighted a closing motor dhow. Billy waved the dhow alongside. A dark Malaccan sailor reached down and pulled him aboard. He smiled and was thanking the dhow's captain when a powerful blow from behind knocked him to his knees. The captain barked orders in Malay to 2 crewmen who tied his hands behind him and lashed his bindings to a deck ring near the prow. His head rang and pain throbbed all the way down his back, but he lay still as the crew rigged a block and tackle and hoisted the rafts aboard. The emergency equipment was stripped from the rafts and piled onto the canvases on the deck. The very pistols were clearly prized by the captain, who took them into the pilot house and returned. He distributed the chocolate and the flashlights among the crew and barked more orders. The block and tackle stowed, the dhow set a northeasterly course. Tied and bound to the deck ring, he had no shelter from the sun and by midday was suffering sunburn. In mid-afternoon, a Malay sailor brought him water and a bowl of rice. His head throbbed and still rang from the blow, but with the lowering of the sun, his suffering eased. By sunset, lights twinkled from the Burmese coast and the dhow altered course due north, following the coastline. Sometime during the night, the dhow hove to and dropped anchor. He was untied and escorted aft to relieve himself and stretch, but then returned forward and tied once again to the deck ring, where he lay down and slept. At first light, the dhow weighed anchor and motored slowly through a channel to a village pier where the crew tied up across from two small Japanese patrol boats. A concrete building at the head of the pier flew a Japanese flag, and it was there the dhow's captain headed to sell the American to the Japanese. In the course of the war, he had sold several British, Australian, and Americans to the Japanese, as well as 2 Japanese to the British in Indian ports. However, the war now over, the Japanese weren't buying. Moreover, the Imperial Army warrant officer advised him that the Americans or British would likely have him shot for piracy. The dhow took on water and a basket of yams, some fish, then resumed sailing north. Once away from the shore, Sorensen was untied and allowed to find any shade he could on deck. He ate with the crew and slept on deck. The second day out, the dhow changed course to the east, and at sunset entered a lagoon where she anchored. The captain hailed a fishing canoe which carried him ashore. The next morning Sorensen's hands were tied, and he was put aboard the same fishing canoe and paddled ashore by 2 Burmese villagers. An old man with an ornate headcloth and the dhow's captain came from a wood-frame building and approached. The captain yelled something at Sorensen in Burmese, barking the same order 3 times, and when he didn't respond, the captain backhanded him and forced his head down into a bow, cursing him. Sorensen's first lesson: bow to his captors. The old man chuckled and then felt Billy's body like a doctor, feeling his throat, his arms, under his arms, squeezing his thighs and looking closely at his mouth, hands, and feet. After a couple of minutes of haggling, the old man went inside and returned with a young man carrying 2 British Enfield rifles and a metal ammo box. The deal complete, the captain and his arms were paddled back to the dhow and set sail immediately. Billy Sorensen now belonged to this old man. He bowed his head to the old man and was led by the man into the thatched hut. Before leaving, the old man spoke to him in English. "You no go. You stay here. You no go. You go shoot you. You no leave this house. You no go." For 3 days, Billy stayed in the hut. His head continued to throb from the blows he'd taken on the dhow, and his ears still rang, but the severity of the headache was diminishing. He wondered if anyone else on the Avant had survived. He thought about his family and wondered if the Navy had sent a telegram saying that he was dead, and then wondered if there'd be a funeral. He thought about Stanky, the cook, who bossed the mess cooks, and how Stanky promised he'd get Billy laid at whatever port the Avant entered next. He hated being called Cherry Boy. Stanky said he'd even pay for it. He had anticipated sex for years, and now, just when it was about to happen, this. By God, when the Americans or the Brits found him, these assholes were going to be some sorry bastards. Still, he was fed, even if it was gook slop, and there was soap and water. Just before sunrise on the 4th morning, he was awakened by the young man who spoke English and whose name was Tan. "You go today. You go with me. We go. You no run. You run, Tan shoot you. You no run." After eating, they set out with 3 other men and a woman, bearing baskets of food on a path that led northeast and away from the coast. He wore a wide-brimmed conical bamboo hat. A rope was tied loosely around his neck, the bitter end around Tan's waist. That day they passed through several villages. At night they made camp by a small stream. After the meal he was taken into the jungle to relieve himself, and then his hands were tied behind and he was once again tethered to Tan, who slept on his right and another man on his left. This became the pattern for each night on the trek. On the afternoon of the 2nd day the path began to climb hills, which by the 4th day on the trial had led into mountains of lush tropical rainforest and occasional cultivated fields of grain or poppies. The headaches eased, but he often experienced confusion and dizziness, and both eyes had become irritated and begun to swell. The woman with the group picked leaves from a low vine and made a compress for his eyes, which at night brought great relief. But once on the trail and under the sun, the irritation and swelling resumed. Ton now untied him and told Billy that they were going to a beautiful mountain village with a famous healer who would make his eyes better. "You very lucky. Very beautiful this place." "Oh yeah, I'm torpedoed, kidnapped, and going fucking blind. Very lucky my ass." On they trudged, and Billy lost track of the time. Confusion came and went, and Billy could not be sure if they'd traveled a week or a month. His thoughts turned chiefly to the past, his family, the avant, quitting high school in the 11th grade to join the Navy, getting laid someday. He did not think about escape, just rescue. The Brits, or the Americans, would come and save him and kick some ass too. Did they have Aussies around here? That'd be swell. Aussies weren't stuck up like the Brits. And wherever there were Aussies, there was beer. The soles of his shoes were giving out, so Ton cut strips of soft wood as inserts. Late one afternoon, they left the narrow footpath, and the men began cutting a swath through the forest. About a mile into the forest, the thick growth gave out under the canopy of giant trees. They crossed several streams and climbed to a plateau, then rested. "Soon you'll see beautiful mountain village." They worked their way across to the southern and eastern sides of the mountain, arriving at a northern crest just at sunset. By now, vision for Billy was painful. He kept his swollen eyes closed as much as he could. But the golden hue sunset he squinted at was magnificent. They had arrived at Muren. Ton led him through the village to a one-room wooden house with a veranda. He smiled and said, "Here is very beautiful. You so lucky." Inside was dim and cool. He saw a table, 3 chairs, a sleeping mat with a wooden pillow block, and a little washstand with a basin ewer. There were pegs on the walls and clean wood floors shone. 2 Burmese girls entered and bowed, one with a towel, a collarless cotton shirt, and a sarong and sandals. "You wash, wear new clothes, no smell bad." The other girl bore a tray with a bowl of noodles and smaller dishes with dried fish and fruit. "You rest good tonight. Tomorrow you see Tuanji." The girls bowed their heads and departed. He ate, washed, and did rest well under a clean cotton blanket in the cool mountain night. The next morning, the girls returned with breakfast. Accompanying them was an English girl who said, "Hello, I'm Catherine. This is Sun Yi and this is Ra. Are you British?" Taken aback, he stared through his puffy eyes. "Geez, I must really look awful. I'm sorry. No, I'm American. My name's Billy Sorensen, and I'm pleased to meet you." "You bet. Maybe you can tell me what in the hell is happening here. Did you know the Japs have surrendered? Am I wearing this thing right? The war's over, I think. I can't see very well. Catherine, is it? Catherine, something's bothering my eyes." Catherine chuckled and smiled. "Do drink your tea before it cools. Sun Yi, please help Billy fold his long yin properly. May I sit here?" While he ate, Catherine spoke. "You're in Muren, and to be quite plain, isolated from the war and from the rest of the world. You now belong to Muren. This is your home. Tuanji told me to speak with you and to make sure that you're comfortable. Is there anything you need? Sun Yi and Ra are happy to help you with anything." "What do you mean I belong to Muren? How can that be? I'm American." "Sorry, but I already belong to the United States Navy. Ain't there any Americans or Brits near? What's going on here? You guys have a radio up here?" "I realize this must be confusing. Don't worry, everything will be explained in time. You're safe here, and you will be well taken care of. You have an eye infection. Yeah, it's something I picked up on the trail up here. Maybe something from little gnats or bugs, I don't know. They have my hands tied behind me and I couldn't swat them bugs. Can't you tell me why I'm here? You're here because you have blonde hair and fair skin. We have a healer here, Baksan. He'll examine you. I'm gone to fetch him just now. Rest. If you need anything, call for Sun Yi. This afternoon you'll meet Tuan Ji. Later she returned with a very old man, who examined him, prodding and stretching his eyelids. He spoke for a long time with Catherine in Burmese, then patted Sorensen's arm and left. He says a kind of tiny insect caused your infection. Is that all? He sure talked a long time just for that. I'm so sorry. There's a real chance you'll go blind. However, he says there's the juice of a little red berry that grows on the lower slopes, and that can help. But it's months before the plant produces the berry. The healer's sending you something for pain. That same afternoon, Sun Yi came in with a basin of warm water and a small vial with an eye dropper. She signaled for him to lie down and squeezed a drop into each eye and placed a warm cloth over his eyes. The drops provided immediately and complete relief from pain. She unbuttoned his shirt, bathed him gently, then silently glided from. Who's Tuan Ji, anyway? Tuan Ji is like a king here. Think of him as the king of this mountain, as a fairy tale. You now belong to this mountain and to Tuan Ji. We, all of us do. He has purchased you. I know this must be terribly odd to you, but do not try to show emotion. Bow low to Tuan Ji and remain silent. Do not laugh. You may smile, but do not laugh or make any loud noise. Just be silent. Do whatever you're asked to do without comment. Do you understand? I'll be with you and I'll help you. What? I'm some kind of slave now? How can he own me? Be calm. It's not what you think. Just try to relax and please act calm even if you're worried. No one will hurt you, I promise. You'll be very well taken care of. I know it's all a bit of a shock. Trust me if you can. Just remember what I've told you. It's extremely important that you appear calm. Remember to bow low and do whatever you're asked. Only if you are rude will things go badly. Thinking of it like a game helped me immensely when I first arrived, and may work for you as well. They left the little house and walked slowly through the village to a large house high on stilts with a veranda on all sides. They slipped off their sandals on the veranda and were met by a smiling man who spoke softly with Catherine in Burmese for several minutes before they were ushered in. Catherine explained that the man was Raj Bar, Tuan Ji's oldest son. Raj Bar led the two through a doorway into a large, dimly lit room. There, on a raised platform, beside a teapot and cup, sat cross-legged an ancient man with shoulder-length gray hair. A wrinkled visage bore just a hint of a smile as he beckoned the two forward. Billy and Catherine offered slow, deep bows. He spoke softly to Catherine, who then bade Billy to take off his shirt for Tuan Ji. He checked his complaint and did as he was told. He wants you to turn around slowly. Billy bowed once again, then slowly unbuttoned the shirt, took it off, handing it to Catherine and turning around slowly. Now, remove the sarong and do the same thing. Turn around. You're doing fine, Billy. Just remember the things I told you. Don't worry. Just a silly game is all. Again he bowed, untucked the fold at the top of the sarong, and stood completely naked before Tuan Ji, Catherine, and Raj Bar. Slowly he turned around. Tuan Ji spoke again, and Catherine returned, first his sarong, then the shirt, and told him to dress. Tuan Ji again spoke to Catherine briefly, then facing Billy smiled and spoke directly to him in Burmese. He tells you that he will offer prayers that your eyes be healed. He gave a small wave of dismissal. He bowed and followed Raj Bar and Catherine out. Back at his house, the evening meal was waiting on the table. "How's about sticking around so we can talk? I got 100 questions." "No, I must go home. Raj Bar is my husband and is waiting. I'll see you again soon. Don't worry. Things will be fine. You'll see. Don't forget the eye drops 4 times a day. We begin Burmese lessons in the morning." Husband, he thought. She doesn't look old enough to have a husband. But then again, she was very pretty, with very fair skin, and long braided blonde braids, and just a hint of freckles across the bridge of her nose. She reminded him of the illustration in his sister's book, Heidi. Catherine Fresnel was then just 16 years old, and the daughter of Arthur and Marguerite Fresnel. He, a district police commissioner, taken prisoner by the Japanese in 1942 and shot. Marguerite Fresnel died of typhus her first year in a prison compound for Western women near Rangoon. At the time of her father's arrest, Catherine had been sent up country to stay the war out with Reverend Schlosser, a Swiss missionary and friend. En route, her train was bombed. Dazed and wondering amid smoking wreckage of the train, Japanese soldiers, the dead and wounded, burst suitcases, and sobbing survivors, young Catherine was snatched by a sharp-eyed scavenger intending to sell her to a brothel. Raj Bar had been aboard that train returning from Rangoon, where he concluded negotiations with the Japanese for the sale of Muren's yearly opium crop. The Imperial War Office had established a production laboratory in Rangoon for the process of raw opium into morphine for the Imperial Army. The Japanese followed the long tradition of exchanging gold and silver for opium. This had been Muren's most profitable season ever. He'd witnessed the abduction and followed the abductor and Catherine through several streets until confronting the man beside a dark go-down. He commanded the man to surrender the young girl. The kidnapper brandished a knife, and in an instant Raj Bar had kicked the knife from the young man's hand, tripped him, and with his foot on the man's back, bending over, taking his head in both hands, twisted it until an audible snap was heard. "Come, little one, you are safe with me." Once in Muren, Tuan Ji, now more than 90 years old, was enamored by the fair skin and hair of the beautiful 12-year-old English girl. He formally married her in a large ceremony involving the entire village. She became his 18th wife, and as such was afforded a high station among the people of Muren. As his newest and youngest wife, Catherine inherited the formal duties of bringing Tuan Ji his tea, serving his nightly Johnny Walker Red, and bringing the old man his pipe. These duties were taught by San, another wife, who showed her just how much scotch to pour and how to roll the opium pellet, light it, and pass it to the old man. Tuan Ji, too old for sexual intercourse, nevertheless possessed a strong libido, sometimes charged by his pipe. At those times he would undress Catherine and gaze at her much as a lover of old masters might behold a Rembrandt or Vermeer. Often he'd touch her with a long, long feather, gliding the soft edge over her entire body. With glazed eyes through the curls of smoke, he would beckon the child to him and feel her lovingly blonde hair. He'd softly brush his ancient hands with their translucent, thin, fair skin across her tummy and her bottom and smile, nodding off to pleasant, sensual dreams. In midsummer, when the evenings were hot, he'd take his Johnny Walker and pipe in the large garden behind the grand house. This was an exquisite place, and her favorite spot in Muren. All manner of beautiful flowers and shrubs were cultivated. In the center was an immense screened-in cage for birds, which one could enter. This cage was resplendent with plants and even low trees. Sometimes in the summer evenings, Tuan Ji would have entertainments by actors and singers there in the garden. Burmese plays are often noisy and usually funny. The actors sport grotesque masks, and their movements are exaggerated, which always seemed to arouse the old Tuan, who drank heavily during the plays and always clamored for his pipe as soon as the grounds had cleared. Then he would have Catherine hold an actor's mask, stand on a little dais and turn around and around while he tickled her with the long feather. This always ended in a quiet laugh. Around the time Catherine reached menarche, the old man found a new prepubescent girl, Ans Ra, an 11-year-old Burmese of incredible beauty, and he passed Catherine to his son Raj Bar, whom he knew loved the English girl. Still, he preferred that only Catherine prepare and serve his Johnny Walker and his pipe. Catherine discovered very early the pleasure of the pipe. San had taught her how to hold the smoke in her lungs during the lighting of Tuan Ji's pipe, and when the old man fell asleep, she and San would finish smoking any remains of the pellet. The effect was most pleasing, and she likened it to being rocked and sung to by her grandmother when she was 4 and 5 years old, a warm, comforting glow. Tuan Ji knew that Catherine liked the pipe, for he had instructed San to introduce the pipe to her and make it available. She and Raj Bar took the pipe together nearly every evening. When the smoke dulled her physical senses, the mind folded itself into a serene state of bliss. By the time Billy arrived in Muren, she had been on the pipe for 3 years. Now she was, in fact, and indeed, Raj Bar's wife, in every way, and Raj Bar did truly love Catherine in a particularly protective and rather avuncular manner. Unlike his father, Raj considered Catherine still a child and avoided frequent sexual relations with her. His 2 other wives satisfied him, although they dwelt in another house. And whether it was the unseemly sexual introduction his ancient wrinkled father had thrust upon the young girl, or the pipe, she showed no interest at all in sexual relations. Indeed, to Catherine, it was an unpleasant duty, like emptying chamber pots. Raj had made inquiries with his Japanese contacts, and he knew that both parents were dead and had told Catherine this. When Tuan Ji died, Raj Bar would become Tuan Raj and assume the leadership of Muren. There was considerable wealth from the poppy fields, and life in the mountains was easy. Other than huge profits from the opium sales, the war had left Muren alone. Well educated, Raj Bar personally supervised her education. There were lessons, math, the sciences, Burmese and English literature. His other wives taught Catherine dance, certain crafts, and cooking. He avoided history and seldom mentioned the war. Tuan Ji had a wind-up Victrola and over 100 records, mostly classical piano and opera, and Raj's library was large. This educational process occupied Catherine's days. She was intelligent and appreciated and enjoyed the unhurried pace through Raj Bar's lesson. He was an excellent instructor, patient, gentle, and often funny. For Catherine's 16th birthday, Raj had arranged with his Japanese contacts in Rangoon for a piano to be delivered to the base of Muren's mountain. Further, a piano teacher would be found among civilian internees and released at Tuan Ji or Raj Bar's request. The Burmese were different, incredibly docile, soft-spoken and kind. They were much friendlier than the British, whom they hated as overbearing, cruel, false, and authoritarian. Catherine shared the Burmese animosity toward her own people because she'd seen plenty of colonial abuse, particularly toward servants and Buddhist monks. But that tranquil, serene Buddhist character could in an instant turn harsh, irrational, and violent when pushed to the extreme. She'd seen that the day Raj Bar had saved her from the kidnapper. She lacked for nothing, emotionally or materially. Life was good and Catherine content. Yet she harbored a longing to speak English. The American seemed a blessing. No, he wasn't British, and he was rather stupid. But how she had wanted to hear English. English from a tongue of a native speaker, and the American accent was even pleasing, like listening to someone from the cinema. Just to hear and speak English was so satisfying. There had been others before him, boys, several in fact, but only one English speaker. He was a blond, upper-class British boy, a banker's son, Rodney. Tuan had been given him by the Japanese from one of the civilian internment camps. However, the boy had been uncooperative and truculent and attempted to run away. Although the same age as Catherine, he did not care for her. He was haughty and arrogant, often making rude suggestions. Rajbar disliked that boy, who eventually became more and more obstreperous and then, like all the others, disappeared. She took great care to indoctrinate this American. Burmese lessons began the next day. The American was impetuous and undisciplined, constantly throwing questions at her. "Listen, Billy, this is extremely important that you learn some essential Burmese. Tuanji wants you to understand him, and you certainly don't want to appear stupid before him, do you?" "How in the hell am I going to get home? That's what I want to know. Geez, Catherine, I'm sure these are swell people, but I ain't one of them. I'm American. My folks probably think I'm dead. I need a real doctor to fix my eyes. Ain't there any Brits or Americans you can get in touch with? There a radio up here somewheres? The war's over, ain't it?" "That's simply not possible. And were you able to see, and were you able to try to leave, you wouldn't make 2 miles before someone returned you. And if by some strange chance you did make it off the mountain, you'd have to pass through 300 miles of bandits and the Japanese who refuse to believe the war is over. No, here you're safe and will be well attended. Very little is being asked of you. Count your blessings. Now, let's try counting to 10 in Burmese again. The, ni, dhow. I don't want to count to 10. Why'd that old man make me strip? What the hell's on his mind, huh? Do you know how embarrassing that was? He's seen everything, and so did you. Tuanji, you must realize, is the ultimate authority here. As such, you must endeavor to please him, always. Yes, he may have strange proclivities, but no harm will come to you, I assure you. If he wishes to see you entirely, please, you must humor him. Look, I know this is most difficult. I'm going to ask Raj to speak with you. Perhaps he can explain this better than I. Obviously, you're in no frame of mind for Burmese lesson now, so we'll call it a day." Catherine visited the house of the healer, Bak San, who gave her a small packet of chiquan powder. She instructed Sun Yi to mix this with the rice in Sorensen's evening meal. She knew Tuanji would want the pleasure of the American soon, and the powders were a narcotic which would calm him and block his inhibitions. She'd used it on all the boys. Only the English boy had resisted the effects of the drug. After dark, she entered the old man's house with a tray of Johnny Walker and his pipe. She knelt beside the old man's curtained bed, stoked the pipe while he sipped from a glass of scotch. "Child," he said, "bring the American boy now." From the veranda she signaled Sun Yi, who minutes later arrived with Sorensen. Catherine met them at the entrance. "Remember, Billy, don't speak, stay calm, and do whatever you're asked to. Let's practice your bow before we enter." "Well done. Very good, very good." "You know, Catherine, I'm feeling really relaxed. Not scared like I thought I'd be. Kind of like, so what if it's weird, huh? Are you going to get naked too?" The sweet smell of smoke mixed with incense in the candle-lit room. The old man laid down his pipe and smiled. Reclined on a stack of pillows, he gestured to Catherine with a circular wave. "Please, take off your clothes slowly. Remember, don't speak." She then disrobed at the same time. Sorensen did, then pointed to the 2 small circular daises at the old man's bedside. "Stand there." Billy stepped up on the little platform as Catherine stood by him on the other. Tuanji stared and smiled, picked up his pipe and took a puff, then signaled to the pair to turn around slowly. Next he tickled Catherine with the long feather, then passed the feather to her as he gave her some instructions. Then she touched Billy with the feather, according to the old man's whims. When Billy's arousal was obvious, the old man sighed and signaled for them to dress and leave. That was it. You did just fine, Billy. We'll try Burmese lessons in the morning. Good night. Wait, can't we talk a little? No, perhaps tomorrow. Rest well. Good night. Soon after Billy's departure, Raj Bar stepped from his place in a darkened alcove. He shared a pipe with Catherine when they returned home. She appeared at Billy's the next morning after his meal and bath. He wanted to know if what had happened last night would happen again this night. I don't know. It depends entirely on Tuanji's desires. Well, I kind of liked it. You know what part I liked? I liked it. Did you like it too? Tell me you liked it too, Catherine. Let's not talk of this. We do what Tuanji wishes. Tuanji's a sick old fart, but you're... Silence. You must never, never, never say that again. It's It's wrong. It's extremely dangerous. But I'm telling you, it's okay. With you there, I even liked it. No, no, no. You do not understand your situation. You simply can't speak of this. Consider it a duty, a secret duty, done to please a very wise and powerful figure. Just do your duty as you would in your military, but say nothing of it. Talk of what passes with Tuanji is dangerous, and you could be hurt. I must leave now. Please, reflect on what I've said. I would not like to see you get in trouble. It would go very bad for you if Tuanji heard your words. And don't be fooled. He understands English, as well as Chinese, Hindi, and Japanese. That afternoon, the swelling and pain in his eyes became acute. Both eyes were swollen shut, and he could see only if he opened his eyelids with his fingers, and that an excruciating endeavor. Baksan was summoned and gave him a drug for the pain, but could not control the swelling. The swelling acquired an orange hue and spread to envelop his cheeks and his jaw, his face grotesque, resembling a pumpkin. Fortunately, there were no mirrors in the house. Baksan returned after his evening meal and administered another anodyne and, at Catherine's request, chiquan powders. Actors and musicians had arrived that afternoon, and an entertainment was scheduled for that evening. Before the presentation, Tuanji had instructed Catherine to arrange for the American to be available after the performance. But, Your Grace, you should know the sickness with his eyes is much worse, and his face has become swollen and quite ugly. Is he in pain? No, sire. Then fetch him at the appropriate time, dear one, he chuckled. The face is not that which interests me. Then chuckled and smiled. But tell him he's to wear one of the actors' masks, so that I'm not offended. You too shall wear a mask to balance the yin and yang. See to this, my flower. Throughout the evening's outdoor entertainment, Tuanji sipped his Johnny Walker, visibly enjoying the evening. With the full moon, the garden was brightly lit, and sweet fragrances from the night-blooming flora permeated the garden. At the end of the performances, he handed Rajbar a small leather purse of gold coins to distribute to the actors and musicians. After the garden cleared of people, he bade Catherine to bring his pipe and the American, and said they would pass the evening there in the garden. Now Rajbar excused himself, promising his father he would return shortly, and soon Catherine came with the tray bearing the pipe, which she lit and passed to the ancient ruler. Soon a low whistle from beyond the hedge let her know that Sun Yi was there with the blind American. She excused herself and walked around the hedge to guide Billy through the garden. At the entrance lay 2 actors' masks. One mask was the traditional mask of the Monkey King. This she instructed Billy to wear, until told to remove it. Her mask was of the goddess Jula, divine creator of winds. Once before the old man, she whispered to Billy that it was time to bow. Helping him to undress, his arousal was obvious to her as well as to Tuan Ji and Raj Bar, who had silently entered the garden. She carefully avoided touching his body until the old man passed her the feather, and laughing instructed her to bring the Monkey King to climax with the feather. Across his shoulders, up and down his back, across his chest, the slowly guided wand velvet touch enthralled and excited Sorensen, whose knees began to shake. Tuan Ji laughed. 15 feet away, supporting the shaft of the blowgun against a mimosa tree, Rajbar leveled the weapon and released a powerful push of air. The dart easily penetrated Sorensen's carotid artery at the precise moment of Sorensen's orgasm. Tuan Ji sighed, rose, and bade Catherine to escort him to his house. Later, on her way home to Raj, she passed through the garden. She picked up the Jula mask and looked at it. Everyone else had gone, and the night was still. She stood in the shelter of the trees at the edge of the garden. The garden itself was bright with moonlight, and the moonlight she could see him lying there, just a few feet from her, stark and pale in the silver glow. The mask slipped from her fingers and fell to the ground beside her. "I so hope the next one is British,"